Thanks, Glenn. Welcome, everyone. As Glenn mentioned, this is Sage MyAssistant overview for you. What I'd like to do to begin with is I'd like to just go through a couple slides just to give you a little bit of background on where the product came from, why we did this, and then I'm going to spend most of the time here in the software going through giving you an overview of the software. We've been around the Timberline community for quite a few years, about 25, 30 years actually, and have received lots and lots of comments similar to what you're seeing on your screen there from Sage Timberline Office customers. And these comments started to kind of gel around this whole idea of providing people a personal assistant, providing people just this little helper in their software. Would be comments like, if I need to find information, I've got to go dig it out, I've got to know where to look. That led us to believe, why don't we kind of just push selected information to people on a regular basis? Or people would say, can't the software just send something, to me? Can the software send or for me, if that matters? Can the software send me a list of vendors, or for me send each employee their pay stub? Let's say I'm head of payroll and I need to send out pay stubs, or I do contract compliance. I need to send out letters to vendors for insurance expiration. The one that stood out a lot was, I'd like to be notified of, and you can fill in the blank. So think of all the little things that kind of pop up that you kind of wish you were told about a day ago, 2 days ago, a week ago. And if you were told about it at that time, you'd be able to handle it much more efficiently, not really turn it into a fire. In fact, one thing I ask people to do in these presentations is maybe keep a little list saying, what kind of things might you like the software to do for you as you go through these presentations, and at the end I'd be happy to answer those for you. Now, the next one here about being more proactive, I think everyone would agree with that. And then this last point was quite interesting. As we were talking to customers, they were saying, don't make us go somewhere else. Don't make us learn another application to try and get information. This thing has got to be integrated with where we work, what we do now in our Sage Timberline Office software. So we really took that to heart. So what is MyAssistant? So this one slide hopefully will kind of summarize it for you, and then I'll jump in the software and show it to you. But the first thing to think about is MyAssistant's a productivity tool. So think of it much like you would, whether it be Excel or Timberline Project Management. It's a tool that's part of the Timberline Office suite. It applies to almost any Sage Timberline Office process, whether it be expiring leases, whether it be, I was talking to a client the other day, they wanted to be notified of employees' birthdays, and they wanted to send out a little notice of employee birthdays. We see this being used all over the board with Sage Timberline Office customers. Likewise, it can be used by almost anybody in your office. Really what it is a personal assistant. The best way to think of MyAssistant is something that will do something for you, okay? It can email you alerts. It can check on something for you. Okay, you might want to just write on the screen and say, go check, did we get paid here? Did this change order get approved? Did this RFI get answered? You define the processes. It could send you your reports on a regular basis. And then it also can communicate with others for you. So really it's a personal assistant that's an extension of Timberline. So think of your workflows. Think of where you'd like to take the next step in the workflow, whether it be communicating internally, whether it be communicating externally. MyAssistant most likely can help you with that. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to go over here and let's take a look at MyAssistant. So the first thing that I'd like to kind of point out is this little green tile that's sitting on my desktop. This is the MyAssistant Live tile, and we did this because it's back to the point of, don't make customers go somewhere else to get information. So in talking with clients, we thought, well, do these guys turn on their computers in the morning? And the answer, was yes. So we said, okay, maybe right here I want to see something. I want to be able to really quickly see, I want to see past due invoices. So right from my desktop, right from my Windows desktop, I can click on that live tile. I'll show you that again, and I can bring up the issues that have been brought to my attention. So these are things that have been pushed to me and brought to my attention. And so if I'm a project manager, these might be my past due invoices. If Glenn's another project manager, he may see his past due invoices. And you can set up these rules to do whatever makes sense for your business. So the next thing that we heard from clients was, okay, that's great, but now make it easy to find something. So I've got it now. I'm in research mode. So now I need to be able to find something. Well, there's lots of ways that many times you may want to look for something. So I may want to look for something for a certain customer. So I can just click on this and say that's the customer, and it shows me the list. Or maybe I don't want to look for that customer. Maybe I want to, let's say this is a really long list. I want to just group these by customer. So really what I'm showing you here is a way that, and this works whether I'm looking at invoices, costs, transactions, what have you, this works the same. You have this ability in this little thing we call a quick viewer to really easily get at information. I'm going to show the group by box. Maybe I want to move this around. Maybe I want the job column to be first. I want the job description over here. Each user can move this around to be what they want. Let's say I want to come in here and actually just do a keyword search. So I don't know if you've ever wanted to kind of think about almost kind of Googling your business. When I say your business, I mean your transactions. And I'm using Googling as a verb there, not a noun. And so I just want to go in here and say anything associated with, tools there. Let's say anything associated with grocers or what have you. I can go ahead and search that. I'm going to turn this filter off. I'll do it again for you. So I'm going to find maybe anything doing with tools. So, and it goes through, and for some reason it's not finding my tools there, but you get the idea on that. So I've got a find capability there in my list. So real easy, quick viewer to look at data. The next thing I can have my assistant do is I can have my assistant check for something for me. So, yes, you guys get your reports on a regular basis, but what I've observed is there's always all these questions that go on in your offices. Did we hear from this guy on this? Did we get paid on that? Did this job get set up? Did we get this lease signed? Whatever the issue is. So what I can do right here from the check for, I can go in and I can check for maybe past due RFIs. And here again, that's kind of your list on things you want to do. And it found 4 past due RFIs. And I say, okay, and then it shows them to me. Okay, so it sits here and shows me the RFIs right here, and I can see what they are. So let's say right here, I wanted to take this list, and I wanted to drop it into Excel and send it to somebody. So right here, I can just say open in Excel, and I do that, and it fires up Excel for me, and here it is, and now I can do what I want with it. Now it's in Excel. So that's another nice little feature here. Here again, right from my Windows desktop, I just said, check for past due RFIs, and I dropped them into Excel. I can drop into PDF, what have you, and work with them at that point. So another way that My Assistant can help you would be to come in here. Let's say you're in Timberline, and let's say you're in and you're doing your thing here, and you're selecting invoices for payment. I'm just going to do something real quick here. I'm going to go in and say, pay that guy, okay, close. One of the things that My Assistant can do is My Assistant can come in here and see this little to-do. It can come in here and pop up. I don't know if you notice in the little right-hand corner down here, my system tray, it says My Assistant, 3 items. Look at the lower right-hand corner, 3 tasks are ready to run due to changes in Timberline. When I click on this, it brings up and says, do you want to do these things based on what you just did in Timberline? So this is my what we call Action Center. And here I can say, do you want to send vendors With expiring insurance, a letter. Looks like you've selected them for payment and their insurance is expiring. Or you've got commitments with unsigned change orders that are selected to be paid. And so what MyAssistant can do is prompt you to do things based on something that you just did in Timberline. For example, I was talking to a client the other day, real simple thing. When they set up new jobs, they wanted to send the project manager a note saying, okay, this job's set up, we need XYZ information. So here again, think about extending your workflow processes and having your MyAssistant prompt you to do things to to take the next step in a workflow process. And here again, all of this is right from your Windows desktop. So another way that you can use MyAssistant is they can push things into your inbox, into your email inbox. So a real common example of MyAssistant is distributing, we see a lot of this, distributing direct deposit pay statements to each employee. Maybe you've picked up by now, I've mentioned several times my and your notifications. One thing MyAssistant has the ability to do is to filter information by recipient. So you can go in here and say, okay, just send each employee their pay statement, or send each property manager their list of expiring leases, or past due tenants, or on the service side, send each tech their work orders as they're assigned. Here's an example right here where a little letter went to a service site. This was a real estate company, I think, that did this. That after they made a service request, they got an email back that said, okay, we received your service request and we'll get it scheduled. Now, this same client, I remember they set up another MyAssistant task to, once the work was scheduled, to send another email letting the tenant know when the service tech would be there and what the person's name was, and so on and so forth. So there's some really cool things you can do there on the service side to communicate and automate that workflow process. Other examples are, for example, here's some past due RFIs. Now, I'll show you in a second here. When you get this list out of MyAssistant, you determine what information you see in each of these columns. So here's a bit longer list of RFIs. So you determine what's in these lists. You can use formulas and column headings and all sorts of things. You also can do things like, let me find this here, like letters. So you actually can use Microsoft Word documents and do mail merge. So I'll show you this in a second here, but I built this off of a Microsoft Word document, and I'm merging in information off of the vendor's insurance information. So your certificate of insurance with our company policy number, this is the vendor's policy, is expiring on this date, and so on and so forth. So you can generate letters and that sort of thing. Or you can just do simple things like this. Here's the list of cost codes that are over budget. So here again, going back to the whole thing of working where you work, number one, I've kind of showed you inside the Windows desktop, and just accessing information right from your Windows desktop, asking for MyAssistant to check for things from the Windows desktop. Second example here is pushing information into your inbox or other people's inboxes. So the whole idea of MyAssistant communicating for you. This is an example I got from a client. They send an open change order list upstream once a month just to say, is this list consistent with your list? I don't have anything on there, but they send an open change request log upstream on that. So that's another way that that MyAssistant can help you out. So you may be wondering, okay, how do I set all this up? How does all this work? Well, this is the MyAssistant Designer here, and the MyAssistant Designer is where you define what we call tasks. So you think about giving your assistant a task, and MyAssistant comes with, in the construction side, about 200 pre-built tasks all around Sage Timberline Office workflows, and in the real estate side, about 100 pre-built tasks, just because there's fewer applications around Sage Timberline Office workflows. Now you can use those tasks, you can just activate them. So if I click on this, I can activate the task. Or you can create new tasks. And Either way, it's done with a wizard. So I'm just going to open one up here. The wizard looks just like this here, where it steps through things like giving the task a name. The condition is what you want to look for. Okay, so what the condition is checked when the task is run. So what do you want to check for? When do you want this to run? So do you want it to run, every day, every week? Or, as I showed you before, do you want it to run at a point in process in Timberline? So after entering invoices, maybe you want to be told that you've posted some costs to close jobs. Or after you've entered payroll, maybe you want to be told that certain employees don't have 40 hours, or maybe there's certain employees that have overtime and they shouldn't. So maybe there's a coding mistake, or somebody got left off a timesheet, or things of that nature. Then after the schedule, I can come in here and I can indicate who should be notified. So in this case, I wasn't emailing it out. Maybe it's just something that someone was querying. But if I want, I could email it out. So let's say I wanted to do that situation where I send the vendor a letter. I can come in here to the email directory and say, send it to the vendor. So what MyAssistant will do now by doing just that right there is it will look up the vendor's email address for those vendors who have expiring general liability insurance. And if I want to send them a letter, I go in here and I just go to File, Open. And I think before I mentioned I had a Word doc I can use here. So I just grabbed a Word doc. This is a simpler one, but it could be more extensive. And now I can, let me grab a better example for you. Let's go to my desktop. And so now I can grab a letter here. And now I can do a mail merge. So now I can go in here and say, you know what, put the vendor name right there. Not there. I want it right here. And put the policy number here and so forth. So you can just grab information. The list on the right here is your Timberline database fields. And you can grab information out of the Timberline database and merge this into your letter here. And so these letters can be all sorts of things. I've seen customers do things like send vendors letters of past due invoices, send architects letters, owners letters. These could be all sorts of things. Employee just got terminated, send the insurance company a letter to get them off the insurance. It's just let your imagination go. I had a customer about a month ago tell me, he said, Dennis, he said, when I got this, I had one thing in mind. He bought it for one process, and now I'm using it all over the board just because my ideas came up. People had ideas and so forth. So the setup is really just that. It's just a few steps in the setup, and away you go. So that's kind of MyAssistant to give you some other ideas. So here's some other things that I have set up, and just to give you some ideas of what you could use. So here's an example of commitments with unsigned change orders, or we've got quite a few customers that get notified of unsigned subcontracts or POs, just period. You want to look at AP aging, or I mentioned cost to cost code without an estimate. This was an example a customer had where maybe they set up a cost code when they shouldn't have, and then that doesn't get noticed many times until you get a management report out and somebody says, hey, why is it this cost code? And then you got to move the entry. Jobs that haven't been billed, or past due invoices. I've talked to quite a few clients that actually send each project manager a list of their past due invoices every month, just to make them aware of that. And then what they also do, which is kind of interesting, is when an invoice gets paid, they send a note out saying, okay, we've been paid by this customer, so that everybody's on board with where that customer status is, at least the appropriate parties. So I'm not going to read through the entire list here. You can kind of go down through the list. This is just an example. These are just some examples that I've turned on in MyAssistant. Dunning letters. There's a whole process you can use around change requests and getting, if you're a general contractor, getting quotes from vendors. I guess you don't have to be a GC for that, but getting quotes from vendors, and then sending letters to remind them to send in the quotes to do that. Here's an example of distributing RFI logs to project managers or the change order log upstream. Hopefully this gives you kind of an overview. Just to kind of summarize again, MyAssistant, the best way to think of it is as a personal assistant, as a little tool that people in your office may use a little bit differently. You may find some people ask MyAssistant to send things to their inbox, and then we see people just live on this little tile right here. They just come in, and anytime they need information, they just go here and grab information, and away you go, type thing. And so it just really depends on the individual and how each person in your office works. So at this point, if Glenn could shut off the recording, and I'd like to open this up to questions.